Was that true, what the White House press secretary said when she denied Homan took the money? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, as I stated earlier, I was not in office. I was not confirmed when that was handled.
What is the answer? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, that happened prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. I said that.
Do you know, sitting here, whether
All
he
I
took the money?
know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case.
Attorney General Bondi, at your confirmation hearing in January, made a clear commitment you would not politicize your position. We're here today at your first oversight hearing 9 months into your tenure, at a time when hundreds of career prosecutors have quit because they were required to take unethical actions at odds with that promise, or feared that they would have to take such actions if they remained on the job. When over 1,000 former federal prosecutors have sounded the alarm about the unprecedented degree to which the powers of DOJ are being abused to go after the president's enemies. I approach this hearing with a heavy heart. As a former federal prosecutor myself, I served in a department that, whether it was under a Democratic or Republican president, would never use the office to go after the president's enemies or to hide the corruption of his friends. But today, the Justice Department has been used to cover up the possible corruption of the mayor of New York or of a high-level administration official taking $50,000 reportedly in cash in a bag, or a child sex predator who befriended the president and some of his cabinet members. And instead of preventing partisan weaponization, your department has engaged in a brazenly political prosecution at the president's explicit direction. The department has become President Trump's personal sword and shield to go after his ever-growing list of political enemies and to protect himself, his allies, and associates. My questions therefore focus on these two themes: hiding the corrupt acts of his friends and prioritizing the political prosecution of his enemies. So let me start with the shocking allegations of bribery and pay to play. 2 weeks ago, 4 major media outlets reported that Tom Homan, the president's top deportation official working in the White House, took $50,000 in cash in a bag from undercover FBI agents in September 2024, just over a year ago. According to these reports, Homan indicated he would facilitate securing contracts in exchange for money once he was in office in a future Trump administration. Reportedly, this exchange was caught on tape. Rather than pursue this investigation without fear or favor, the department and the FBI under your leadership or that of your predecessor before you confirmed quietly shut it down. Once news broke, your deputy and FBI director issued a joint public statement confirming that the Trump administration closed the investigation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied Homan took the $50,000, telling a reporter, quote, "Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight." So today I hope you can help us get our facts straight. Was that true, what the White House press secretary said when she denied Homan took the money? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, as I stated earlier, I was not in office. I was not confirmed when that was handled.
So does that mean
Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Director Patel said that there was no evidence that Tom Homan committed a crime. Yet now you're putting his picture up to slander him.
No, I'm putting his picture up showing an interview he gave with, I think, Fox, in which he was asked explicitly about these allegations that he took a $50,000 bribe, and he refused to answer. He said he didn't answer the question whether he took the money, so I'm asking you the question. Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, I answered that question multiple times, and frankly,
Well, I don't think, with respect, I don't think you did, but in case I just didn't hear you, what is the answer? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, that happened prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. I said that.
Do you know, sitting here, whether he took the money?
All I know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case. And Caroline Leavitt is one of the most trustworthy human beings I know.
So
and,
was she,
Senator Schiff,
if
you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your egregious...
You can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks? You've been attacking my FBI director. You've been attacking my office. You've been attacking...
But what we're interested in...
borders are.
What we're interested in is the answer to these oversight questions.
You want your,
so you were asked by my colleague. You were asked by my colleague.
Attacking good people.
A regular order, Madam Chair, so I can ask a question. You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Homan taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI. Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. will you
You don't have
support?
to tell me what is my decision and what is
then-
not
then-
my decision. I
and
said
you- and
you
you
can
don't
talk
have
to
to-
Director
and you don't
Patel.
have to try to-
You think
you
you've
don't
got a
have to-
gotcha with Tom Homan, our borders are,
Excuse me. You
who's
don't-
been out there
excuse me.
fighting for our country
Madam
since
Chair,
Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed, I believe the American people should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump
So
for
I
trying
guess,
to
I guess
impeach
the answer
him
is you won't support that
after
request.
you now know that
So
Joe
let me-
Biden tried to
let me
cover up
do
Hunter
this.
Biden's involvement with
Excuse
Ukraine?
me. Let me do this because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today. So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question. You
you
were
have a
asked,
law degree,
excuse
Senator
me,
Schiff?
excuse me. You were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is
you've
over.
attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your
You can attack me
entire
later,
career.
and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day today.
Canned
But this
attacks
is-
on
this is-
you?
This is supposed
No
to
one
be.
needs a canned
excuse me,
attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair. I'm trying to speak. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing of the Justice Department. And it comes in the wake of an indictment called for by the president of one of his enemies. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing, and it comes in the wake of revelations that a top administration official took $50,000 in a bag, and this department made that investigation go away. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing when dozens of prosecutors have been fired simply because they worked on cases investigating the former president. This is, and now
What
the
about
current
the
president.
fires in California?
And
Do you
this
care
is
about that,
supposed to
Senator
be,
Schiff?
this is supposed to be an oversight hearing in which members of Congress can get serious answers to serious questions about the
Are the
cover-up-
riots in
about the
LA
cover-up-
serious?
About the cover-up of corruption, about the prosecution of the president's enemies. And
I think you owe the president an apology
when will it be
your entire career,
that
frankly.
the members of this committee on a bipartisan basis demand answers to those questions and refuse to accept
Clearly you're a
personal,
failed lawyer
refuse to
because you don't
accept,
understand when
excuse
someone
me,
can and cannot
refuse
answer
to
a
accept
question.
personal slander as an answer to those questions.
Personal slander.
With
Will you
that, Madam Chair,
apologize to Donald
I yield
Trump
back.
for slandering him? Personal slander.
Senator,
May I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to introduce into the record the statement of 1,000 former Justice Department officials who warned that the Comey indictment is a democracy-threatening abuse of power. May I also request unanimous consent for the introduction to the record of 282 former career officials at the Justice Department raising an alarm who were voluntarily or involuntarily forced to leave the department because of improper actions taken by the Department of Justice. May I introduce with unanimous consent the Justice Department manual that talks about when initiating and declining charges are subject to impermissible considerations. And finally, Madam Chair, may I introduce the letter from Michael Ben-Ari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor at DOJ, a letter he nailed to his door, which concludes by urging officials to do the right thing for the right reasons, to follow the facts in the law, and raises the alarm that the decision to remove experienced career officials from U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, and critical parts of DOJ undermines our country's abilities to counter terrorist organizations, malign nation-state actors, and countless others that seek to harm our nation and its citizens. And he believes that the priority is prosecuting the
still
president's
arguing,
enemies
or are you admitting
rather than
Colleagues,
protecting
Ms.
the
Bondi, one
country.
moment.
May I have unanimous
Are you
consent to
going
enter
to turn
these
that
into the record?
without objection?
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Britt.
Senator Moody, may I clarify one thing he entered in the record? I just want to say that I believe he entered a letter by 200 and something former employees. Well, I believe the spokesperson for that letter was also the spokesperson for Jack Smith.
What we just witnessed between Congressman Adam Schiff and Attorney General Pam Bondi was more than a heated exchange. It was a clash between two fundamentally different visions of justice in America. Schiff, a former prosecutor himself, wasn't merely pressing for answers. He was defending the very idea that the Department of Justice must remain independent from political control. What makes this moment so striking is that Schiff isn't simply questioning a scandal. He's highlighting a dangerous pattern that, if left unchecked, could corrode the rule of law itself. Let's break this down. Schiff's central argument is that the Department of Justice, under Bondi's leadership, has turned from a neutral guardian of justice into a political weapon, used to shield the president's friends and punish his enemies. This is no light accusation. Schiff meticulously outlines example after example: the firing of career prosecutors, the alleged $50,000 bribe taken by Tom Homan, the unexplained decision to drop major investigations, and even the potential manipulation of antitrust cases that benefit politically connected lobbyists. Each of these, on its own, might raise questions, but taken together, Schiff paints a chilling picture: a Justice Department that has lost its moral compass. Now, what makes this so powerful is not just what Schiff says, but what Bondi refuses to say. Time after time, she's pressed for answers, and time after time, she dodges, deflects, or pivots to personal attacks. She claims she wasn't in office when these events happened, or that others handled it, or that critics are simply attacking good people. But that avoidance speaks volumes. When the chief law enforcement officer of the United States can't affirm something as basic as whether her department investigated a high-level bribery claim, the credibility of the institution itself is on trial. Schiff's tone here reflects frustration shared by millions of Americans who feel that justice has been politicized, that there's one system for those with power and another for everyone else. His repetition, "You refuse to answer that question," isn't just rhetorical. It's a strategic hammering of accountability. He's calling attention to the fact that transparency and oversight are being stonewalled. And when Bondi interjects with accusations about Antifa protests or slandering Trump, it underscores just how far the conversation has drifted from the pursuit of truth to partisan theater. But beyond the politics, there's a deeper, systemic warning here. Schiff is defending a fundamental democratic principle: no administration, Republican or Democrat, should use the Justice Department as a personal instrument of revenge or protection. That's not about party. It's about the survival of democratic institutions. When political leaders can decide who gets investigated and who gets a pass, when evidence of corruption is hidden or dismissed, and when career prosecutors are purged for doing their jobs, the rule of law becomes an illusion. What's also significant is Schiff's historical context. He recalls a DOJ that, under both Democratic and Republican presidents, operated on the principle of independence. He's reminding viewers that the Justice Department once prided itself on integrity, not loyalty tests or presidential pressure. And when Schiff reads those letters from former DOJ officials and prosecutors warning about the democracy-threatening abuse of power, he's anchoring his argument in the voices of people who dedicated their careers to the justice system. That's not political posturing. That's institutional alarm. Pam Bondi's responses, on the other hand, reveal a growing trend among Trump-aligned officials: loyalty over law. Her repeated refusal to engage with substance and her insistence on defending Trump at every turn reflects a mindset that sees oversight as hostility and accountability as betrayal. This is why Schiff's performance matters. He's not just confronting Bondi, he's speaking directly to the American people to remind them that silence and evasion from those in power are not just political tactics. They're warning signs of deeper democratic decay. For Democrats, and for anyone who values the independence of our institutions, this hearing is a turning point. Schiff isn't asking for partisan victories. He's asking for the restoration of integrity. When oversight hearings become shouting matches instead of fact-finding missions, when answers are replaced by accusations, when loyalty becomes more valuable than law, the American system of checks and balances is under threat. So the takeaway here isn't just that Schiff clashed with Bondi, it's that he stood up for something essential: the idea that the Justice Department must serve justice, not the president. It's about accountability, truth, and the courage to demand both. And here's the thing. Hearings like this remind us that democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes when we stop holding leaders accountable, when we let lies go unchallenged, when we let institutions be hollowed out by partisanship. Schiff's voice today wasn't just a political critique, it was a call to vigilance. If you care about an America where justice means something, where no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law, now's the time to stay engaged, stay informed, and speak up, because the more light we shine on corruption, the less room it has to grow. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Blue Lens, and share it with someone who needs to understand what's really at stake when politics interferes with justice. Let's keep this conversation going, because democracy doesn't defend itself.